Hey everyone, welcome back to Heaps Creative, the podcast where we uncover creative archetypes, find all those threads that connect us as artists, makers, and creatives. I'm your host, Tyler Jackson Chappell. In today's episode, I sat down with Chris Summer, contemporary painter who specializes in hyper-realistic still life compositions, some of them taking up to 200 hours to complete. As Chris is self-taught as an artist, he also put that same amount of effort into learning the business side of things, so he has some really incredible knowledge to share. We spoke about the back end of things and also his thoughts on what it means to make art and living a creative life. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Chris, thank you for sitting down with me.
My pleasure, Tyler. Thanks for coming to the studio. It's nice to have you.
It is beautiful. This is like one of the, downsides for like an audio format is people can't see the amazing view and the amazing art. And actually, like for people listening, I do want to tell them to go to chrissummer.com.au and check out your art because it is like mind-blowing.
I don't think I've got many views of the studio on there though, which I really should do.
Just the art in general to see, like before we get into talking about your work and stuff, I'd like people just need to see your art because it is
Thanks, mate.
Incredible.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
I think the space is integral. Hey, I really work really hard at, I don't know, I describe it to not like a temple. A temple's crazy, but like sometimes my lifestyle can be a little bit Buddhist because the focus it takes to do the art that I do, the space just has to be, plants, view, lighting, emptiness. Like it feels nice. It feels lovely. I feel inspired just sitting here, and my life needs to be I try and keep my life as peaceful as possible, so that I can just sit in the space and just feel good in myself. It's so hard to be creative when you've got stress in your head.
Just a monastic artist. Like, I think a lot of creatives though like need like a certain level of like asceticism. It's either like total like hedonistic out every night, like wake up at 4 p.m. and get your day started, or it is that treating my life like it's a spiritual practice.
I've tried to have a glass of wine while I'm painting. It just does not work. I'm not that guy.
I guess, like each to their own. I think, what was it? I was listening to a writer talk and he said, write on coffee, edit on wine, and not the other way around.
Yeah, I definitely drink coffee. That's for sure.
Which for your work, I feel like coffee, I would need a wine to be able to do the work you do, because like the patience it takes is one of the most mind-blowing things when it comes to your work. Like, did you have to cultivate that, or was that from the beginning you had it?
Yeah, 50-50. That's probably both answers, yes and no, in the same sentence, because obviously it's complicated. Like it's a headspace that I definitely have had to cultivate. I read a lot. I listen to a lot, like we were just talking about before we started. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of motivational things and entrepreneurial podcasts and just good habits and stuff like that. And it has taken me years and years and years to develop the mindset. When I first started as a full-time artist, I could maybe sit at the easel for a couple of hours, and then I'd call a friend and go, oh, do you want to go out for a walk or grab a coffee, or just get out. Like it's an intense space to sit in solitude painting so meticulously, and it absolutely has taken, I reckon it probably took 5 years to build up the habits and the mindset, and that is what's the word where it compounds? It's compounded over years, and I really protect that, because if I lose that for too long, it's easy to undo all those habits.
Like exponentially. I mean, if you're listening to the entrepreneurial podcast,
for
but
sure.
But it sounds like it's been like a parallel mental kind of, not clarity, but spaciousness and the art have kind of grown together?
Yeah, it's a really good way of putting it. I think I track my hours each year. I know how productive I've been. I know how much work I've produced. I know what time. The biggest thing in the early years was spending time on my practice, but spending time on things that are useful for my practice, but you could deem as procrastination. You know, like I could lose 2 days to website design because I didn't have my portfolio online. And you know, when my work takes so long, I have to keep the main thing. Like, so during the daytime, I will only ever do painting. And all my, like you were saying about the writer, all my social media, my website stuff, sales leads, emails, email campaigns, whatever else I do, that gets done at 8 o'clock at night with a beer in my hand while my brain's fried, but I don't need my creative brain for that, so I use that. So there's a lot of that going on, but at the same time, in terms of patience, how I paint is how I love to paint. And it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't take patience. I don't feel like it takes patience, because it's just the headspace. You know, if you're a creative, which you are in many ways, what you get from it is something that you don't get usually anywhere else in life. And me painting in that way is what does that. It's just, and so the day just goes. The day goes. My alarm goes off and I go, oh, it's lunchtime, I'll go to the gym. And then I come back and start painting, and before I know it, it's 5 o'clock. And it just breezes past. I don't perceive it as taking any patience at all. Now I've built up dedication, motivation, persistence. They are all absolutes. But patience itself, I don't know.
Like, there's so many good threads to go down, because we've spoken about before how important taking the business side seriously is to you, and we'll jump into that a bit later. But one of your pieces takes a month, 200 plus hours to finish. Hyper realistic. Have you always painted like that from the beginning?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, I mean, not as detailed. I've not always been an artist, but when I first started as an artist, works would take 60 hours, which in my head was a really long time. And I saw other artists online that would do artworks of 100 plus hours and 150 hours, and I was like, oh, that's just but as I developed, and I guess as my skill developed, and also that's what I love exploring. Like, it's not accidental that I pick subjects that challenge. You know, feathers are just the most intricate thing that you could possibly think to draw if you're looking at drawing every strand and every little fine filament that comes off every strand. You couldn't pick a worse subject. But I choose it because that's the avenue that I've gone down, and because I enjoy that. And there's also an element of, I don't know, there's also an element of finding, you know, when you're doing it, you want to find your voice. In your early career, you want to find your voice. Like, it's always challenging to do that. And I realized early on that in my art community, there's many people online that paint as many hours as I paint. But in my local art community and in the sort of Fleurieu Peninsula and art scene, there aren't as many people that paint like I paint. And I realised that actually people would tell me so much, you must be so patient, there's no way I could do that. This must be something that is really challenging for you. And I thought, well, actually, it's not, it's pretty easy. And if that is something that people already are impressed by, then if I push that, that's going to take me into a place where no one else is going to stand with me, and that's going to give me my own voice, which is kind of exactly what's happened.
That's how I feel when I think about your work, is there's just absolutely no way I feel like I could sit down and do that. So do you think your voice developed as a byproduct of the way other people interacted with your work, or do you think it was an intentional, I don't want to say business decision, but career decision? Or Was it just kind of where the work took you?
This is a subject I could talk for hours.
Like, that's the good thing about podcasts. Like,
Yeah.
Plenty of time.
Yeah. 3 hours. Yes, I see being as an artist as a business, for sure, but I don't make decisions on what I paint from what other people think that I should paint. But feedback, art's weird, right? Because it's not, art is art when there's someone looking at it. If it's just you in your space creating something that you're passionate about and that makes you feel amazing, and then you stick it in a drawer with your other works, it's not that it's not art, but it isn't engaging with the work like people perceive art to be. And art kind of has to be in a space for people to see it. It's art when it makes somebody feel something, and it can't be that if it isn't on show. I don't know if you feel the same with your poetry. If you did poetry in your own space to yourself, does it feel as much like art as if you're presenting it to a room where those people, I've seen you perform your poetry and people clap at the end because it's made them think something or inspired them or whatever.
I mean, if I've not shared it, I probably think it's a bit shit. But I don't view the act of making it as a waste of time. I view the act of making it as a practice that's going to lead me to better work.
But if we were talking about a performance, if you did a performance of your poetry by yourself, does it have the same value, or does it have as much depth in its value as if you're presenting it to people to experience it?
I would say it still serves a purpose, but not the same purpose. I understand what you're saying is what is that kind of line on the spectrum that makes it art?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question.
Because it always does something for you. Because you're right. It's not that it has no meaning, because the entire reason I'm sure that every artist who is an artist got into it is because it did something for them long before it did something for anybody else. But as a practicing artist, I think that the world definitely interprets, the world interprets how you see things, and I think people's response is a part of that. But I don't paint. I paint what I'm passionate about, and I paint what I love, and I pick the subjects that I love. But I think I can hold that integrity and still be conscious of what things people value, and knowing how people interact. I think that's an important part of a practice, to know how people feel about your work.
I think it's like anything, as soon as it becomes a job or there's money involved, something changes, and it might just be that awareness of the fact that people will interact with it, and you can learn how they feel about it, and that can not dictate what you do, but it can be something that you're aware of. Yeah.
It can change in stacks of ways, because, when I used to paint just for fun, I mean, I painted I drew as a kid. I just did graphite pencil on paper, hence the sort of black and white charcoal work, which we talked about in the past. But I think, when you do it all day, every day, the whole meaning of it shifts. But it still holds that value that it's always held for me. It's the best job in the world, because I get to do something which, like I said, is like, I don't know, I do perceive it like a significant relationship in my life. It needs my dedication, it needs my patience, it needs my commitment, it needs all those things. And that is just a totally different energy to sitting down as a 12-year-old on the dining room table sketching cartoon characters out of a comic book. It is completely different. But it's still the I don't know, if I don't sell It's hard because many artists are concerned about selling out. Many artists are only paint for themselves without considering what people think of their work. But as a working artist, if I don't sell a work, especially if that work's taken 6 weeks, then I don't have the financial support to produce my next work. And as far as I'm concerned, my art existing in the world, taking that dynamic into consideration, is a much better space for me than just it not. You know?
Yeah. I don't want to say it's a catch-22, but again, it's something you need to be aware of. If you want to be a working artist, you need to be a working artist.
Sure. Yeah.
And I read online, I don't know how accurate these dates are, but 14 years ago is about when you became a full-time artist?
Yeah. I reckon that's probably in my bio, mate.
Yeah.
14 or 15 years ago.
What did you do prior?
I have a hospitality background. I've worked in hospitality all my life. I never knew what I wanted to do as a career. I did go to uni to study sort of architecture, but my heart wasn't in it, and I didn't finish. And I'd been working in kitchens and while I was at school, and then I started working at bars while I was in uni, and then I went into hospitality management. I was a wedding maitre d' and a high-end function manager, sort of doing parties and do's and weddings and stuff like that. And I did that all my working life up till I was, well, even when I came to Australia. It's a great job to come to Australia with, because it's better than picking fruit as a backpacker. But it was great because it was a career that exploring art is really challenging because of everything we've just discussed financially, especially in the first 10 years of your career. It is just, it's next to impossible to make it work. And many people more talented than me don't make it work. But I was very fortunate that hospitality is a job that you can do part-time. So I held down part-time jobs while I was figuring out my early years. But also it was a job I had no issues walking away from, knowing that I could, because I'd been doing it for so long, if it all fell apart, I could jump back into it at any stage, which I'm so glad I didn't have to.
But that, even architecture and being managing high-level functions and stuff, that both of those things require a very fine attention to detail. That's obviously transferred into your work.
Yeah, and I think I think the running function rooms in golf clubs and stuff like that, and function centres, I learned a lot of the business side, profit and loss sheets, rosters, how to make profit, how to consider cost, and all those things. It's really funny because I don't really consider myself that right-brained. I think I'm way more left-brained than I am right-brained. I don't think I look at people like you, and I think that you're a way more creative person than I am naturally. I'm very analytical, very logical, very structured, which actually, now I've discovered this side, they combine really well for the career. I'm able to do that side of my practice better than, or not better than, but more comprehensively than maybe a lot of other people do. But I had to discover the creative side. It wasn't always there for me. So that's a life journey really, which is a whole thing, a whole story. But it wasn't something that I was ever nurtured in me or that I ever explored. So as soon as I left school, and you be a young man getting into working life, and I didn't draw for a decade at least.
I was the same. Drew all through primary school and everything, and then at a certain point somebody tells you to stop and you stop, and yeah.
So what made you restart?
Having a kid and kind of wanting to do something from home, and I just had this, I was going through a lot of changes career-wise and kind of what I was doing, and just wanted to do something creative. And I'd gone back to uni to do graphic design, but I didn't like the idea of sitting in front of a computer that much.
Yeah.
And like the illustration part is what drew me into visual art. And then, yeah, it's like if somebody were to look at kind of everything I've done from the outside, it looks like I've just done a bunch of random shit and they're like not connected at all. But to me, it like makes perfect sequential sense in the way everything's happened. But kind of what you said before, like I think that analytical part of your brain and working life is what allows you to make art like this, and finding that marriage has like resulted in this beautiful like end result that like I couldn't do it. Like I don't have the ability to sit there for that long, and it seems like this thing that on one hand seems so far removed from quote unquote creativity or an artistic life is actually like the engine that's allowed you to be such a unique and create such amazing work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't quite know how they balance. But you are right. There's definitely a weird overlap, and it even in my mind process while I'm painting, especially with the black and white work where it's tonal, because I thin my paints. I put a medium in the acrylics, and so if I want a really bright tone, I've got to put that tone down 3 or 4 times before it really holds its own, because the underpainting, which is a bit darker, so I can build the light tones above. Even in my head while I'm painting, I'm thinking, well, yes, this whole section is a bit lighter, but that section is ever so slightly darker. And so, okay, if I've got to put 4 layers down, then if I overlap a couple of different tones here so that it doesn't quite shine as much as that, then you can create that really subtle complexity. And that really is the thing that I really love. I not really love in my work, really enjoy visually, is that acute detail mixed with subtle complexity of light and shadow and texture and shade. And just that dynamic of those two combining is really, I've always found it really inspirational. So it's a big part of the subjects that I choose and paint.
I think it's a really good thing. It's like for somebody listening to a podcast about creativity to see that it can show up in crazy ideas and like, I don't want to use myself as an example, but like jumping from like one thing to another, and also, just this super fine attention to detail and finding that satisfaction and that pleasure in just the tiniest little, like you said, shift of light that creates this beautiful image that I probably wouldn't have the foresight to see as I'm laying down the first layer to be like, in 7 layers, this is going to create exactly what I want it to. Like, I think that's a really good thing for people to hear, that it's not just, this is the kind of person I am, so I can or can't make art. It's like, it might be a different process, or it might be a different type of art, or not even art, just an expression of creativity. But every brain, no matter how it works, can make something in the, I don't even want to say parameters, but in the kind of structure that is already there.
For sure. Yeah, it's a human nature to be creative, isn't it? It's, I don't know, if you... reading any books on creativity, they all say that everybody's born with it, and that it is, it's something, it's a really subtle energy. It really, life can drown it easily, and you really do have to protect it in quite a big way. But you are right. It can take any form. Hyperrealism's weird because occasionally I'll get people ask me what the difference is between my work and a photo, and for me it's really clear, but and it's a nice comment, because what they're saying is it looks so much like a photo. But I think people forget that just because it looks like a photo doesn't mean that it is like a photo. It doesn't mean that you could have a photo like it. I choose different lighting situations for the same subject to represent areas in different ways, depending on how I want to draw focus. And so by definition, in a single photo, you couldn't have both of those lighting conditions present at the same time. And that's the same with the focal point in a still life. If I'm doing one of my urchins, the left-hand side might be really sharp, and the right-hand side, which is the same distance from the camera and should be sharp, is out of focus because I want the attention over on the left-hand side. And all that subtlety which is created is just, it's all shifted towards telling a bit more, not more of a story than a photo does, but in a different way.
There's a sense of like the uncanny, like there could be actually less realism than like an expressive piece that does have perfect lighting or like whatever. But yeah, it's just like you said, this choice that's made it its own like specific thing that doesn't actually fit into kind of,
for sure,
it's harder to define because of that.
Yeah, it represents photography, and I think that tricks people into thinking that it is the same as photography, but it's definitely not. It is a painting. I look at it and I see all the brush marks. It doesn't look like photography at all. And it has the story, and it has my energy in it. It has the emotion that I put into it. And I don't know, I'm a bit logical to think too much about energies and stuff, but people that resonate with my work really resonate with it on quite a deep level, and it feels like that's a connection in the way that I feel when I'm creating it, you know?
It's very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch people look at your own work.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. It creates another level of, like you said, you make it and it exists as art in the world and people react to it, and then you see them to react to it, and this whole
it's the best
cycle.
It's the best thing. It's almost on par with creating it yourself. I get often artists will ask me if I struggle to let work go, if I struggle to sell work. And obviously, given our conversation just here, that I don't, because it's important for me to, pay rent and put food on the table. But I don't create art to have art. There's a couple of prints hanging here, but I don't have any of my originals hanging in the house, really, and in the studio, because my pleasure is in the creating. That it's that space that gives me what I get from it, and I don't do it to have a piece of my own artwork on the wall afterwards. And so that doesn't hold as much value for me. But to have somebody else look at it and love it and enjoy it so much that they want to invest whatever value to have it, they want to have it for a significant amount of time, that they enjoy it that much. I get way more from that than seeing it every day as I walk past it. I've experienced enough creating it over 100+ hours.
You actually don't want to see it
I don't want to see it anymore. I'm glad it goes.
And like by now, like your art is in so many places. You could take a walk down the street and probably see a piece. Yeah. Or right now in Norwood, this will actually probably go to air while that exhibition is still up. There is a giant, like billboard size painting of yours. Yeah. Please tell me you're going to get that.
I haven't spoken to them yet. I'll try and ask them. I don't know. It's big. I mean, it's huge. But I'd love it. What a privilege.
New wallpaper.
New wallpaper. It could definitely make an advertisement for the Esplanade at Victor Harbour. I'll stick it somewhere. It's the hero image for the landscape exhibition, the big landscape. So they do an annual landscape exhibition. There's 18 artists, I think, in it this year. And they have a giant banner over the gallery. Did you say it was art images? They have a giant gallery over art images, and my image is the hero image. And that was, it's just what a privilege, and weird to see the work that you've laboured over at, just this.
Do you know how big it actually is, the dimensions?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's meters by meters. I don't know. It looks like 4 metal boards that I assume the sheets are about the sort of maximum sheet size. So it's not even on one sheet. It's four sheets put together.
It's very impressive. Like I said, you need to try and get it once the exhibition is over.
Yeah.
But we'll put all the links to people can go check it out when this goes to air. Before we spoke, you mentioned that there is a phrase that you have. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. The phrase I have, which will not be surprising based on the conversation, is to be a successful creative or a successful artist. Think like a creative and work like an accountant. It's something that I do every day. I have a roster for myself for each week. I know.
Comes from your management days.
Comes from my management days. I got from a friend, I'd love you to put a link into this actually. So Dan Orban, who runs Daring Humans, he is a leadership communication coach. And do you know him?
Yeah, I know Dan, yeah.
He's a legend, I love him. I did one of his courses, Daring Human courses. And one of the things that came out of that was obviously communication at work and meetings and stuff like that. And I said to him that, I work by myself. And he said, you can still have a meeting by yourself. So I've fallen out of the habit a little bit, but I would sit here on a Monday morning and have a meeting with myself, facing an empty chair. Sounds insane. But what great value. Because the point that he was making is that when you work by yourself, it's so easy to slip into the habit of not assessing, because everything's in your head and you don't verbalize those things of what do I want to do this week? What do I want to achieve this week? What are my goals? What are my targets? Where does my focus need to be? Where did I not achieve last week? Where do I need to redirect myself? And if you don't speak that out loud, you're not, and that's easy when you work in an office and you have meetings all the time. So I would have a Monday morning meeting with myself to figure out what my goals are for the week. But it's my entire mindset of I have a weekly target of hours of how much I want to achieve. I track all my hours. I've got an app on my phone. As soon as I start doing something, it's either my easel time or my website design or something else, supplies, and I know where all my hours are going. Because like I said earlier, it was easy. I'd look at my time in my first couple of years and I was 50-50. 50-50 for creative stuff to peripheral stuff. And there's a lot of peripheral stuff in the early years, but it was something that knowing that meant I could go, that's not how I want to spend my time. That's not, how I want to spend my time is creating the work. And so I really do look at the entire process of everything I do in that way. And that's something that's been so valuable to me.
And you mentioned Dan. Is there anyone else in your kind of art journey that's had an outsized impact, like a mentor? It could be an artist, doesn't have to be an artist.
Yeah.
Somebody who's had a big impact on you?
Funnily enough, most of my friends aren't artists or creatives, and I love that. Look, I mean, two answers. Friends and family for sure. Like the people that support me not in a way, not even in a sense of mentoring. Because like we talked about, it's so challenging and it is absolutely the best job in the world. But all life is balance and nothing comes for free. And so having, for me, the best job in the world means that I am paying on the other end of that scale so much in terms of sacrifice and just limiting other things to make it work. And so just having a great network of people who support you, are interested, are there for you when times are challenging, will pay for a beer at the pub if you're, in my early years when financially it was so hard getting off the ground and so slow going, that that they are just there to support you in all the smallest ways, and that is by far been the best thing for me. I also have a close relationship with John Lacey, who's had a 40-50 year career. He's the area's probably most collected artist. He's based at Mount Compass, and I wouldn't say he's my mentor, but he is definitely a knowledgeable guide and a super experienced artist, and we catch up and communicate all the time, and he has definitely helped when I've had questions about how things work about the industry that I don't understand in terms of my own practice and my own creativity. I like to figure that out myself, but the industry is a weird industry, and it's nice to have someone who can give you some insight about how it works and how to manage it and navigate it. So we've had a close relationship for a few years. I used to manage the Strand Gallery at Port Elliot, and John was one of the main artists that we represented, and he's been quite helpful.
You sort of answered my next question. You just mentioned it there with the Strand Gallery, and you also do work with other galleries. You've done curatorial work, so it wasn't just the hospo work. There's also work within the arts world, which you still do. Do you think that's a pro or con, having that kind of seeing how the sausage is made a little bit, working in galleries and as a curator? Do you think that's a benefit for artists? Do you think more artists should do it?
Yeah, I'd say it's a pro in so many ways. In all the ways, it's a pro. It's a pro to get me out of the studio. It's a really solitary environment. Like I said, I've got lots of close friends and beautiful connections. But you are spending most of your time in your own creative space when you're doing it for full time. So it's important for that. It's important to stay connected to the industry. It's important to see what other artists are doing. It's no one. I don't know, what do they say? Nothing is truly original. No piece of creativity is truly original. I was even listening to a podcast today that it said that no thought, you cannot have a thought in isolation, because everything that happens, every thought you have is a response to something that has just happened, whether inside or outside of you. And art's no different. Like, I see I paint the way I paint, and I don't meet many people that paint how I paint, but every artist that I see in the galleries that I work in, you look at and go, I love how they did that. I love that colour, or I love how that bit of light shines, or I love that little bit of composition. And it's really important to get inspiration from that, but also to meet other people that are in the same boat as you, because it's a unique way of living life. And it's really important for that. But I think the most important thing that I get from it is what a gallery is and what a relationship for an artist of a gallery is, because being on the other side of it, getting representation by galleries is not an easy thing, especially in South Australia and probably throughout the world. Like, galleries are closing at quite a rate, and the competition to get in them is tough, especially when you're in your early career. So approaching galleries is really challenging, and without getting too deep into it, unless you wanted to.
I think you read my notes. That was actually my next question, is
Okay.
What has been your experience like working with galleries, getting represented? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Do you have any advice for other artists? And also being on the other side, maybe some insight from the gallery's perspective.
Yeah, I would say I have advice, but my advice is maybe more of a don't list than a do list. We get the gallery that I work in at the moment, Artworx, is a lovely gallery. It's based in Goa, represents well over 100 artists. It's a full commercial gallery. It's not run by volunteers or supported by council or anything like that. It's a full commercial gallery representing professional artists, and almost daily we get artists come in asking for representation, and it's a very challenging dynamic, because that is consistent throughout the industry. And I even visit some gallery websites where they will say on the website, do not approach us, because it's become this thing. I don't want to use the word toxic, because people are reaching out. They're trying to grow their career, and it's a great thing that they're interested in it. But the way that it happens and the dynamic that it happens has really, well, I guess it's more about the quantity than necessarily how it happens, but it's really just puts galleries backs up. And so if you are going to approach a gallery, obviously if you're not in the area, it might be different, but if it's a local gallery to you, go in the gallery half a dozen times before you talk to them. Know the artist they represent. Know whether your work fits within the context of what that gallery represents. Know that you are at a price point which that gallery sells at. Know that you're at a standard that that gallery sells at. And even then, approaching the gallery is a softly. It's more like a dating thing than I think the thing is often with people who don't have representation, they might be very keen for it, and they come in quite heavy, straight up to the counter. I've had people come up to the counter and not even be concerned that they've walked in front of someone who's trying to buy something, pull their phone out, put pictures in your face, start showing them the work, not realizing that they're taking up your time and have never visited the gallery before, don't know who you are, don't know anything about you, and aren't considering the relationship. They're just coming in, and it's clear that they're coming in from their own dynamic and their own angle, and it just does not work. The people in the gallery just go, no, I'm not so, because it shows a certain level of, or it just shows that I don't know how to word it, that maybe having a mutually beneficial relationship isn't at the forefront of their mind, and that's clear when people walk into a gallery. So I think the only way, and because of that, it's become really challenging. So I think the only way to do it is to, if you verbally ask, is just to ask, how do I apply to be at your gallery? Don't show pictures, don't show anything, just ask and wait for the answer. And if you're given an answer that is a way to do it, then just leave and do it that way, or just keep forming the relationship, or just chat and hope it happens organically. But doing it forcefully is not a way to go about it.
Do galleries have much of like a interwoven relationship into your actual process or practice? Do they make requests? Do they like get any say in what you do for what you're going to show there, at least?
Good question. There's an interesting, everything with galleries is a relationship. It really is, and that it really stems on from what we were just saying. And you have to see it as a relationship. And I guess in that relationship, then they do have sometimes some verbal notes on what they would like to represent. I mean, it's up to them what they put on their walls, but they have no obligation. I think this is the thing with galleries, is it gets challenging for people because you have state galleries which aren't looking to sell anything. It's a collection of work owned by the state. Then you have volunteer collectives, and they might be sort of, hobby artists, amateur artists, and they volunteer there to keep it going. And then you have full commercial galleries, and a full commercial gallery, as I said, has no obligation to represent or show anything. They will show what they think their customer will enjoy, and depending on the standard and thing that they. So there is definitely conversations there. That's part of managing the relationship. I don't think I have changed anything that I've done to get into a gallery, but I know that it does happen, and I know that galleries do make those requests, and I think that, that's just depends on, not your integrity, I was going to say your integrity, because you might be fine with painting whatever. if it works for you, it works for you. It does happen. But this is why being in galleries is so complex, because it really is about finding a gallery that you gel with and you work with without forcing it, and they gel and work with you, and it feels organic and it feels natural. And that's not to say that one side doesn't have requests over the other side, but it just works, and it just is an easier arrangement.
Because you did make a pretty big change in the style of your work. Yeah, early.
That wasn't requested by a gallery.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering. Was that like, why did you make that change? Like, what inspired it? Because it went from the total black and white, everything tonal, to these beautiful coloured seascapes.
Ocean seascapes. Oh crikey! I don't know. It's a huge. It's a huge look. It's not a change. I will still. This year I've been focusing, or the year since I changed, since February last year, February 2025. Since I've changed, I've solely been doing the seascape stuff or ocean stuff, colour stuff. I will go back to the still life stuff and the black and white stuff. I really love that. There's potential that I'll integrate the colour into the still life urchins and the feathers, which is a really exciting concept, because urchins have a beautiful, subtle, often a little lilac, pinkish, bluish. They're really gorgeous colour, so I don't mind bringing that into that dynamic. I've definitely not walked away from still life, because I love having so much impact over the lighting and the way that I represent such a small subject. You know, in the studio, when you're taking reference photos, you have so much control, and you can just tweak the tiniest little thing, just get a bit of tinfoil and just put a little bit of fill light into a shadow, whereas with landscape, the way that I'm working with it at the moment, it doesn't quite meet that same criteria. And with the feathers too, I'm looking forward to doing some big, bright, colourful feathers. That will be fun.
Yeah, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But I was looking for a bit of a challenge, a bit of exploration, and a bit of something new. And I had no intention. I think we said this when you walked in, that the plan was that it was just going to be a little sort of study series. I'd never worked with colour before. I didn't even own a tube of coloured paint. I had no colour theory knowledge, no anything. And it was 4 months of going into full reclusive. I didn't produce a single thing to sell for 4 months, which I definitely got bought a beer at the pub by my friends during that period. Just to figure out how it worked for me and get it up to the standard that I wanted it to be at. And as soon as it hit a certain point and it clicked, I realized that it couldn't just be these little studies. Like I enjoyed the challenge, I enjoyed doing it, and it became something that I really wanted to explore more. And it's developed so much over the last year. The whole dynamic from being sort of beachy to sort of first-person view, to then aerial view, to local rockscapes. And now the most recent ones that I've been doing are a little bit sort of lost in space. They're not necessarily a specific location. They're referenced from the south coast, but they don't sort of, you wouldn't know that from looking at it. And so then it becomes more about that specific rock or arrangements of rocks and how it relates with the water as the water's moving around it, how those two elements interact with colour, and while there's a sort of a low lighting, so you get some shadows cast, and then it becomes more about how the elements interact than it being, this is a Port Elliot seascape. So they've sort of developed through that, and it just is, I can't keep up with my desire to discover that is way more, where it is, moving faster than I can produce work. So we'll see what happens.
And that's kind of the plan over the next few years, is to kind of merge those two elements?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I don't know where the ocean stuff is going to go, because I thought that had started to stabilize, and then I've changed it a bit. I've also started doing a few cloud pictures. So we'll see how they go. I'd like to start sort of branching into, I don't know, some sunset kind of colours with the clouds, which may lead to, you know, some ocean sunset sceneries. I really don't know with the ocean stuff, but it definitely, the still life stuff is definitely prominent. And I have, you know, some commissions that I've got with those, so they're still very, very present in my mind. I'm just not actively producing them at the moment. And I think it's nice. I enjoyed that with, one of the reasons that I picked feathers and urchins, that I was pretty much just doing those, is because they both offer me something different when I paint them, different challenges and different focus and a different mindset to create them. So if I did a couple of urchins in a row, I go, oh, you fancy doing something else? And that brings a different presence, and the ocean stuff has just done
Totally
that
different
as well. Yeah. So it means that I like being, what's the word? Not a jack of all trades. I like being quite refined in my vision, but I do like to have, within that refinement, to have a couple of different options so that I can keep myself interested and challenged.
Do you have any advice for emerging painters?
In terms of what? In terms of technical art or career?
Let's leave technical out, because I feel like you're in your own lane for that, unless somebody wants to dedicate hundreds and hundreds of hours to a single piece. Just in general, somebody who wants to make this their life.
Yeah. I think I still would like to say something technical, because I think it's important. I think with art, I think something in composition, art is. I was talking to someone about this the other day. I don't think, if you listen to music, I don't think you've ever heard music that you've enjoyed where the person, even if they enjoy creating it, if the person just gets up and sits at the keypad of the piano and just bangs out notes. You know this from poetry. Space, rhythm, and tone are all things that, and every single art form is exactly the same. They're all things. There are technical elements within art which help you expand the feeling that you get from art and help you portray that to the canvas and make it so that that feeling that you get can speak to other people. And they are just as important as, I mean, in something like music, I assume they're probably more important. The, you know, rules of thirds, composition, focal points, how you draw the eye, they really are so often understated. And I think there's this thing where people think, because rules are made to be broken, that means that they don't need to learn them at all. But rules are only there to be broken if you understand them deeply enough that you can tweak it to make something. But 90% of the time, you're still holding those true. And I think the one for me, which I really focus on, is a focus point, is knowing before you start the painting where you want the viewer to look, because you could have put so much time into your work and it could be a beautiful painting, but if there are 4 different points grabbing for your attention, it causes tension in the person looking at it, and it doesn't create peace, and that means that the story and the emotion from the painting doesn't come through. And so that for me is really important, knowing where your eye is going to be and subduing the things around it to guide that focus. In terms of career, I don't know. Work hard.
That's actually
It's-
what it sounds like on both fronts, is that commitment to craft, like actually
Yeah.
learn the rules. You're not just throwing stuff up on a canvas.
So yeah, it's a really good point. It's a beautiful career though, because every single artist I know does it in a completely different way. And so I even feel like you were saying, like the technical thing, because mine is quite specific. I even feel like my career is quite specific. And it is really hard. It is really hard to know. I think the thing is I don't know. Find your own voice for sure. And it doesn't need to be something that you decide. It will happen over 5 years. Figure out your price point. Start putting your work out there. Let's just say that. Start putting your work out there. There is no better way to know how you feel about your work until you walk into a space where your work is on display to the public and you know just how you feel about it. And you will walk away from that with 10 things you want to improve. Whereas when it's in your house and the safety of your own house and no one's criticizing it, but you have the safety to only look at it in the same space that you've created it in, and it doesn't promote the same assessment, which is great for progressing your craft, which for me is vital. Real art is being connected to your creative spirit and having the technical ability to bring that to the forefront, to present it in the most beautiful way that you can. And it really is an amalgamation of the two. And it can't just be about, it can, if you're only doing it for you, it can, but if you're hoping to have a career on it, it can't just be about what. Which I think that even that's probably bad advice, because I'm probably one of the only people that thinks that way. There's a David Bowie reel on Instagram and he says, I don't paint for anybody but me. I don't listen to galleries. I just paint how I feel. And I'm like, and it's really, people comment and they're really inspired by his video. And I love David Bowie, but I don't like the message. Like, he's independently wealthy and has that luxury. I don't have that luxury, and I assume most people that want to have a career in art, maybe not either.
It's a good point to make.
Mm.
That kind of apex you mentioned of this, like, inner creative idea and having the actual technical chops to make it happen, like, do you have any, I'm sure a lot of your work kind of reaches that, but do you have any one piece that you're most proud of that's been like the pinnacle of that for you?
Yes, potentially, but can I remember the name of it? Insubstantial. It's a painting of a feather, and for me it just really, I really pushed the focus point and a strong transition to blur. And in the feathers, the softer parts are actually really important, because when I was first exploring feathers, I would paint quite a lot of detail and actually found that it didn't fully capture the essence of the feather. It kind of weighed it down a little bit, and I really wanted it to feel like it would just, you could blow on it and it would float off the page. So that was kind of the mindset, but this one particular image, there's a very acute focus point where the water droplet is, the lighting's nice, the rest is quite soft, and then on the top edge of the feather, or the end of the feather, which is sitting above the focus point, that because that is linear and coming towards the camera, it transitions from soft to focus and then back out of focus, sort of in line with where the water drop and the focus point is. And I really enjoyed how that came together.
We'll definitely put something in there so people can check it out and like actually see the things you're talking about.
Yeah, I've got an online portfolio, so you could link to the
great.
actual.
We'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now?
I am just about to start a private commission, and it is the biggest painting that I've will have ever painted. It's 1 meter by 1.5 meters. Usually I like to do big works because they help capture the detail, but I never do giant works because they take so long. The biggest work that I've done, it was over 200 hours, and I think that was 80 by 120. And that, I mean, it took weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't know how long this will take, but I think it will be substantial. But I'm working on a private commission, and then I think I've actually bought a second canvas the same size, another 1 meter by 150, because I thought, if I'm getting at that, I might just back to back them. We'll see how I go with this and how exhausted I am afterwards. But I'll be thinking about doing work for Sala at Artworx Gallery in Galway and having something there for August. And so I guess if each of these pieces takes probably over a month, then that'll be starting to creep up quicker than I know. So I'll be sort of thinking about that, and then I'll be thinking about producing work for the Victor Harbour Art Show, because I'd like to have another submission in there and get some good ocean works in there. I put ocean work in there for the first time this year, and it had a good response. So I think my year is already...
Winning is a pretty good response.
winning a prize is a good response. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it was a real privilege. What a great way.
Which, congratulations, by the way.
Great way to start the year. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's good fun. It's nice. It's nice winning prizes. It's funny because I have a very short story on this, and it's not to devalue the prize in any way, shape or form. It's just where my focus is. I was in the studio painting, and I'd dropped the work off. The delivery was done. The art show doesn't open for maybe a couple of days. Opening night is the Friday, which I was sort of considering going to. But I was mid-painting. And as I said, the main thing, that's what I do. That's what I wake up gearing my mind towards and focusing towards. And I got the phone call from Julie, who runs the Rotary Art Show, and she informed me of the news, and it was fantastic. I was really genuinely honoured, and she was so lovely, and I got goosebumps. It was such a real privilege. And she said goodbye. We ended the phone call, and I stood in the space for a couple of minutes, and I soaked it up, and then I looked at the easel, and I sat back down, and I picked up my paintbrush, and I just carried on painting. Because that's,
That's what you do.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, the awards are great. The awards are absolutely great, and I really love them. But being an artist every day is just enough,
I really appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where's the best place for people to find your work?
Oh, good question. I have a good online presence. If you go to chrissummer.com.au, I have my own website which has a full portfolio, bio, and you can buy prints and stuff like that there. Feel free to send me a message if you're an artist interested in anything or looking at web design or anything like that. I do all my design, all my own website. I'm also on Instagram, Chris_Summer_art, which I post semi-regularly. I was really good at it, but it's eased off a bit. And physically, I'm represented by Artworx Gallery in Galway, and I'm represented by Art Images Gallery in Norwood. And as we said, they've got that landscape exhibition, which is on till the 19th of April, 2026, I think.
Which this should be out by then, so
yeah.
Everyone get along and see it. And also, if anyone's thinking about reaching out to you over Instagram or whatever, you're incredibly gracious. So
for sure, yeah.
Definitely, people should do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. This has been so much fun.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's super cool.
This episode of the Heaps Creative podcast was recorded on Narrandjeri Ramanjeri land on the Fleurieu Peninsula. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.